You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross, your host, and this is episode 229. I have Amy Lynn Durham here today, and she is the founder of Create Magic at Work and an international authority on improving workplace culture so employees and teams have better results with less drama and stress. Okay, I just have to stop there. I trademarked the term defeat the drama years ago. So I knew that we were kindred spirits, but in addition, Amy is AUC Berkeley certified executive coach, certified to coach in the 21 skills associated with spiritual intelligence using the SQ21 Assessment, a certified emotional intelligence practitioner. Amy loves to share tips and tools to help leaders put their ego aside and gain higher productivity with less stress in the workplace. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today. It's going to be fun.
It is. Oh my gosh. I'm going to, I'm excited to hear. But again, I saw that drama thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, come on now.
Yeah, no drama.
Yeah, you got to defeat that drama. It stands in the way. So, tell me more specifically, you have all this stuff going on, but tell me a little bit more specifically about the work that you do and the impact that you're making in the world.
Yeah. So I'm going to take you back a little bit just to give you a little bit of a background. I was a corporate executive for many, many years, and I basically I got to a point where I felt like my creativity was being stifled in the workplace. And I definitely was experiencing some feelings of burnout because when I finally left my job, I planned to leave my job for a year and I didn't tell anybody. And what I did was I said, okay, I want to leave on top so nobody can say anything, because I was in a very cutthroat, competitive corporate environment, worked for a publicly traded company with quotas and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what I did was I took my employees and I used these EQ, emotional intelligence, and spiritual intelligence skill building activities to bring them together. And at the time, I don't think they realized what I was doing because when I left my job, I put all the activities in my book to share with other leaders some quick ways that they can bring their people together. But really, what I had a few goals in mind. I wanted to leave my job on top, because I wanted to prove that connection and collaboration wins over unhealthy competition and pitting people against each other. Yes. I also wanted to
throwing my hands in the air over here. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I also wanted to sleep in my same bed for a month in 30 days in a row because I traveled so much. I was like, I'm going to sleep in my bed.
Oh, good goal.
That was the other one. And I wanted to go out on my own and re-inject myself back into the workplace in a different way. And that's how Create Magic at Work was born. I took off, I wrote the book, I traveled a little bit, I attended the UC Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. Everyone started talking to me about spiritual intelligence. It just kept coming up and coming up. I discovered the SQ21, which is the 21 skills of spiritual intelligence developed for the workplace by Cindy Wigglesworth. She's a former HR executive for Exxon, and it's been quite a journey in the entrepreneur space, but I'm super excited about the work that I'm doing because I think it's probably the most connecting work that we can do. And it makes the most difference in the workplace. I mean, it really does. And I think what it does, I'm like rambling now, but I'm starting to think of men in the workplace and how they've been conditioned to not show emotion, not be vulnerable. Things are changing gratefully. But I think this work is super important for men in particular. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more specific. And I had a man experience Just recently, it was like the opposite though, but it would take us down a different path. I'm about to do a podcast episode on it though. Just the whole, how assertive women are, perceived. But anyway, I digress. But so tell me a little bit more specifically about, do you generally come into an organization, a department? Do you work with individuals? Like, how are you generally making your impact in the corporate world? And I'm assuming it's in the corporate world.
Yes, it's definitely in the corporate world. So it's two parts. I have the create magic at work, fun activities that leaders can do with their teams. So I come in and I can do a whole connecting team build throughout the day on activities based off my book, which skill build in EQ and SQ. And then the other piece is the one-on-one coaching. And the one-on-one coaching, my favorite thing to do is the SQ21. It has the biggest impact for the shortest amount of time. And you get so much from just a one-time session. So you take the assessment, you get your skill levels and all of the 21 skills of SQ, and then you meet with me to do an hour debrief. And then you have this assessment and its results for the rest of your life. And you take it with you as a leader. So it's a one-time interaction that packs a pretty big punch. And then you can do other sessions after that if you want to deep dive into some of the skills. Some of the skills of SQ are like, let me give you some examples of spiritual intelligence. First off, spiritual intelligence is a faith neutral system, and you can be agnostic, you can be atheist, as long as you believe that you have a place within you that comes from wisdom, compassion, love, what we like to call your higher self, that you can access. You can work on these 21 skills of SQ for the workplace. And some of the skills, they're broken up into 4 different quadrants, similar to EQI. Some of the skills are like, are you aware of your values? Do you have a values hierarchy? Can you stack rank them? Those are some of the beginning, skills. What is your level of your awareness of the interconnectedness of life? What is your skill level on your breadth of time perception? And then when we get down into quadrant 4, most executive leaders want to immediately take me to quadrant 4 when they want to talk about their results. Because the skills in quadrant 4 are like, am I a wise and an effective change agent? Can I make wise and compassionate decisions? Some of those things to explore. And I see it a lot on LinkedIn where leaders put in their title, I'm a change agent or I'm a servant leader. And I wonder at times if that's just becoming a new corporate catchphrase that people are kind of, and if they've really sort of peeled back the layers of the onion as far as what that means. So yeah, and I have clients that make amazing discoveries at some beautiful gifts that they have that they didn't realize. I had a client that scored a super high level on being a wise and effective change agent, and they hadn't even known that or dove into that before. And they took them down a whole path of adding that to their business and that skill set. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And about those terms, I can guarantee you some people are embracing and kind of living them out, and others, yeah, I do think they've become some buzzwords. I mean, and I'm sure you would agree, like we both see the cultures of organizations of all types and the dysfunction that exists within. So that's
it, buzzword. I'm like, I needed to think of buzzword. And I've been in those meetings. I've used the buzzwords, guilty,
Mm-hmm.
But as I've progressed on this journey, it's really caused me to pause and think about these buzzwords we use and if we really even know what they mean.
Yeah. Well, and if people really do implement them, like understand and then remove the barriers to living them out, that is transformational for not only the business and the culture, but heck, our society, honestly. So
yes,
we need more people to understand this stuff and not just use the words. So actions. So you shared a little bit about what motivated you to start working towards this impact. And initially you shared the 2 goals that you had, which were leaving on the top and sleeping in your bed more often. But how about for others? Like what encouraged you or inspired you to help others make transitions, and what kind of transitions do they kind of end up making sometimes other than having some great self-discovery?
It changes as I go through my coaching and business experience, but initially it was authenticity in the workplace. The more that I saw that my employees could show up as their authentic selves and connect with each other in a real way, the more productivity and profitability and employee satisfaction I was getting from my team. And oh, by the way, kind of like what you mentioned before, the ripple effect in society. How are they behaving when they go home from work for the day? And how are they treating people that they run into on the way home, their family, their friends? Maybe a little bit better, hopefully, because they're having these connecting experiences at work rather than feelings of isolation and loneliness. And so that really touched me, seeing my team when they're doing these activities, being able to take off the mask and put it down and be who they really are in front of each other, see the humanity in each other, and just know that, oh my gosh, this person struggles with life just like me. This person is seeking joy and trying to avoid pain, whatever they're going through. It was powerful. And, to take it just to the business side, it freed me up as a leader to actually do my job because they were so connected. If they needed something, they would just call each other. I mean, they know their job more than I do because it's a different position, right? So they were comfortable reaching out to each other for questions, working on projects together. All of those things freed me up to do my job.
Yeah. And that's, a couple of thoughts were coming to mind. And one, I use the term trust buckets. How full are your trust buckets? Because, even if we stop and think about our personal relationships, we are able to give so much more grace if we have a full trust bucket with someone else, because we assume the best. And we all trust in different ways. Like some people trust until you mess with me. Others like prove it and then I'll trust you. But if we don't have any time to really be authentic with our coworkers or others in our lives, we generally don't have full trust buckets. And then that's when all that friction and drama ignites. And it does make it harder. Now you're playing referee as a leader instead of focusing on the business. So making sure they're having that time to connect and fill their trust buckets with each other can be so transformational as well.
Yeah. And making that time during work hours is so important because you're stating as a leader that this matters and that this is a priority, not shoving it to when
a cocktail hour
exactly. After work, time off, anything like that. During work hours, showing it's a priority is a huge deal, not interfering with their personal time. The impact is amazing. And the data's there, which is so frustrating for me sometimes because I'm like, wow, all the data's there that if we just connect authentically, take care of each other, understand collaboration over competition, it's a win-win. It literally is a win-win.
Oh, I know. Like, I hear ya. I hear you, sister. Throwing the hands in the air again. I know it's just, but of course for our own like health, it's like, you got to focus on where you can make the impact yourself because there's just so much, and people not willing and all of that. Like, so putting your energy but yeah, I can, I've said that I have been facilitating high conflict, difficult conversations for going on 30 years. And I have never lost control of one. Two, I have had to help them coach through. And mostly what it is the fear ahead of time. They have all the what ifing that happens. And three, in that 30 years, like I said, I've never lost control. We've always had positive outcomes. And the big fears have never come to fruition. And not only did the fears not come to fruition, on the other side of being vulnerable and authentic, and even if it's not a high conflict situation, but even when it's a high conflict, or an eroded relationship or a non-existent trust bucket, even then you see, more connection on the other side and a healthier, sometimes there's a longer journey, of course, but like it's moving in the right direction. You just got to rip the Band-Aid off and do it.
Yeah. And that's the part about being vulnerable and courageous, right? Like Brené Brown.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and that's where I think people get tripped up and that's where it sounds like you're coming in to help facilitate that, is I have a quote in my book about the selectively data-driven executive. And it reminds me of that, because when we're talking about the data and how it's a win-win when you bring people together, employee satisfaction, high engagement, all of those things, sometimes that data is ignored because this is the touchy-feely stuff that people are uncomfortable managing.
Right.
Or
MAMB, they call it MAMB. People
MAMB. Or on my side, because it's
soft
spiritual
skills
intelligence. On my side, because it's spiritual intelligence, I'm woo-woo. Or
yes. Right.
Something like that. It's like, okay, call me whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I also think that these skills need to be taught, like with you coming in and facilitating something like that. Beautiful. Perfect. And seeing the value in that. I'm seeing a lot more companies that are seeing the value in that and bringing that to their organization. And as we grow and as we move forward, you and I are recording this conversation during the Great Resignation. It's a huge talk right now. Employees are leaving their jobs at record numbers to choose something else. I live in California. There's now hiring signs everywhere I go. It's
Michigan
insane.
too, everywhere. And I've been helping 100% of my clients across the nation right now transition job descriptions, help them be more creative in their recruiting to entice employees. Yep.
And right there, who do you think that people are going to choose to work for? The company that is cutting edge and connecting and understanding these things, or the company that has unhealthy competition and is not connecting?
Right.
I mean, pre-COVID, I don't know if you've seen this research article, but pre-COVID, Harvard Business Review did the loneliest workers in America research. And they found that employees are feeling burnt out, not from workload in particular, but because they have feelings of isolation and loneliness, and that's contributing to burnout. I'd love to see new data points come out from COVID too, because I'm sure it contributed more to the feelings of loneliness and isolation with remote work.
100%.
And how do we keep that hybrid workspace and keep it flexible so we have a workforce for everyone, or a workplace for everyone, but then also connect each other?
That's another conversation I've been having with my clients too. Like, how do we stay connected? And I've, again, been trying to help them be creative about how you replicate the water cooler conversations, the bopping in and out of each other's offices. And so I've been, we're getting a little, it's still highly relevant, but, I was going to say we were getting off topic. No, we're not. This is highly relevant, but have kind of, I'm using air quotes here, but office hours where pop into Zoom and just sit there and give people the link and let people know you're there and available, and do your work, be productive, but know, like, there's certain times when I'm just here, like I would be down the hall, or, schedule those activities, the connection activities during work, to just get to know one another, play a game, do something fun. And, that is not just work related. And this is pre-COVID and, not remote work, but make sure you're taking time to celebrate and thank one another and appreciate one another. I believe one of our innate human desires is to feel like we are known, acknowledged, and appreciated. And if you're a leader who is not being intentional about making sure that you're doing that, the last time you talk to your employee was when there was a hiccup. And then the next time you talk to your employees, it's going to be because of a hiccup. And there's all kinds of things to appreciate about them in between. So don't be the leader where people are saying the only time they talk to me is when, there's a problem. So, but anyway, we digress. I want to tell a cautionary tale, if it's okay, that I think will inspire this authenticity. Because sometimes, again, that fear, I always say, like, fear wins. And we can sometimes bust through the fear, one, by creating the pain where we are, because the pain of this, staying the same has to be worse than the pain of the change. But also just cautionary tales, we can think about, I didn't realize the collateral damage, the consequences. And so I want to share this story about being inauthentic. And it was a client, and he had an employee that needed feedback, and it was around her communication style. And he was afraid to be a true leader and give her that authentic feedback. And so for a year, he was going to leadership team meetings and hearing feedback about how she was communicating, and then acting like he was giving it to her, and he wasn't. And this went on for over a year until there was an unrelated situation where she ended up like rising up and saying, what the heck? And meanwhile, by the way, all the leaders are more and more frustrated and resentful towards her because they think she's getting the feedback and continuing to make the wrong choices, but she wasn't. She hadn't been given the opportunity to make a different choice because she didn't know, because this guy was not being authentic. He was lying to his coworkers, but it turned into such a huge rigmarole. And it all came out of his fear of having an authentic correction conversation with her, which was just identifying the gap that was in her communication that she could easily tweak, actually. And so, and it turned into such, a year of frustration and resentment and her feeling like, oh my gosh, why does everyone not like me here? And what's going on? And her having no idea. And them thinking like she's making bad choices, given full information. And I facilitated the conversation that they had after all of this blew up and came out and all of that. And super hard. She lost all trust in him. Totally valid. They're working it out though. But like, man, a year of all of that for what? So that he could avoid all the what ifs, the discomfort of having that one conversation.
Yeah, the uncomfortable conversation feeling.
Yeah, just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, that's a really compelling story about what people will do to avoid uncomfortable moments.
And there's so much good on the other side of those uncomfortable moments.
Yeah. Sitting in that uncomfortable moment as a leader is a big deal. And it takes a while to grow. I mean, I've been there. I've been wanting to avoid an uncomfortable conversation as a leader, of course. I mean, in all the years you do this, you go through all of that. But if you can view feedback as a gift, that's one way you can reframe it. Okay, feedback's a gift. And if people get defensive or upset when you're giving them feedback, well, that means they care. I hate feedback. And when I
giving or receiving, or
receiving, I'm so, I fight that perfectionist tendency every day. And when I get feedback, sometimes it stings, but I always have to reframe it that it's a gift to help me do better and to serve my clients better. So
yes. And that's letting the ego win. And that
exactly.
when that defensiveness rises up. So from the flip side of that, I have my 4Ds, bust the 4Ds of discipline avoidance. There's 5 now, but anyway, they all start with D, but I share the 5 main stay stuck strategies that employees use. And it might not be intentional. So you likely get defensive, you might not show it, but it might be only happening inside, but that's one of the D's. Defensiveness. Deflection is another, like, let me hijack this meeting. But yeah, those stay stuck strategies come about. But if from a leadership perspective, you have the right mindset, which is it's my job to give you the opportunity to be successful by sharing clear expectations and identifying those gaps for you and creating a plan, that is a gift. And so, have that opportunity, and you don't need to join them in the twirl, however they end up reacting. Some people, they're going to react all kinds of different ways. So, yeah, that's great though. You're like, I don't even like getting feedback.
Well, I mean, I want to be, we're all human,
oh, I know.
Right?
No one loves it. I mean, but yeah, especially because you get all those thoughts too. And like, not perfect, all that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But you completely hit it. In an SQ perspective, spiritual intelligence, what skill 5 is awareness of your ego self versus your higher self. And I talk a lot about that in EQ as well with emotional intelligence. Can you recognize when you're triggered? See if it's your ego that's playing a role within that. Can you put your ego aside and work from that place within you that comes from wisdom and compassion? Reframe the situation, build a connection, instead of getting defensive and firing back and all of those things. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, you keep making me think of instances, but anytime the topic is shifting and you're the one who's shifting it, take a look. So I know I have a client right now who is it's a family business. And so now the sons are working in the business. And so he has this huge desire to prove that he didn't make mistakes. And this happens a lot in family business when the next gen joins in. But anyway, I was facilitating a conversation. It was the toughest one ever. It was 2 hours with one of the sons. And he was just trying to identify, it was just a super simple, challenge. and they needed to problem solve it. But the dad only his filters, he threw these filters on and these earmuffs, and all he heard was, "You do a bad job." And so he had to defend that. So we can be aware of that we're doing that if we're hijacking the conversation. So that's your ego hijacking the conversation. If it's no longer on problem solving, if someone's trying to share an issue and you're telling them there isn't an issue, you got your earmuffs on and the ego's winning.
Yeah.
So tell me, I knew that this was going to be an awesome, fun conversation, but I love to have guests here share what fuels your passion, like a specific impact that you can think of that maybe it's your go-to one when you're having a tough day. Cause we all hit those tough patches and we need to refuel. So we need to ignite that passion in us so that we have the tenacity and all of that. And so what is one client story that you have where you really help them transition?
Okay. This is the first thing I'm just going to share intuitively what just hit me while you were saying that. And this is a favorite of mine because it ended up being super simple. I had a client that was starting a nonprofit and he was overwhelmed and working many, many hours. And this was like, I love what I do, because at the end of the session, his homework was every morning he was going to get up and go on a walk to Starbucks and walk back home. And that was it. Mm-hmm. He was just going to do a micro change, a micro step in what he did, because he was burning himself out. And that was it. And I was so, as a coach, even inside, we don't admit it, but I was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't, have any sort of big action items coming up for his nonprofit or anything from our session. And it was like, we're open to outcome. We're not attached to it. We need to clutter clear some things out to let new things come in. And he was like, yeah, I'm just going to not do anything and take a walk every morning to Starbucks and walk back and and disconnect. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's all I want. And the next time we met, many, many changes had occurred. So just the power of sitting with someone and helping them facilitate their thinking, helping them remove the clutter from their life so new things can come through. That just one particular story came up, but there's many. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It can be just those simple little changes that can be so empowering to someone else. And it's just not on their radar.
Yeah.
So yeah. How fun. Well, and how cool, if you're helping a nonprofit do their work better, you're helping in a small way with that awesome impact that they're making. And so that gets to fuel us too.
So cool. Yeah. And what really fuels me too, and I change things around. I mean, I love the connection with clients. That's big. I mean, I get sometimes more just out of meeting with them than I think they realize themselves. It's amazing connecting with someone and helping them through a conversation they may not normally take the time to have. And then I love doing fun stuff as far as if you're talking about refueling, I created all the Create Magic at Work tools to add the fun, because this is deep inner work that we're doing. And so I don't know if you've seen, but I do a weekly workplace message. I authored a journal prompt card deck, and I'll pull a message from the universe meant for everyone for their career or their workplace each week. And I love doing stuff like that.
Oh, I love that. And I actually have someone that I need to connect you with. So remind me when we're done with this interview.
Oh, cool.
She was just asking about, some simple team building kinds of things to do. So yeah. Tell me, what is you personally the biggest internal or external challenge that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
So as we all have been through challenges in our lives, I'm going to bring up a recent one, because I was just in an SQ summit and we shared, what did we lose the past 18 months, in reference to the pandemic, and what have we gained? And I thought about it and I was like, wow, I lost my agency over the last 18 months. And I actually gained it back. I lost it and I gained it back. I feel like we were inundated with workshops, online courses, advice. And as a lifelong learner and a leader, when the pandemic hit, I dove into all of those things. I was in many different groups, and I got to the point where I was getting close to just listening to experts and instead of taking responsibility for my life and my decisions. And so, yeah, that was a challenge. I feel like I was walking through a forest and I finally came out of the clearing, and I gained my independence and my responsibility to make decisions for my life, which is a huge SQ skill, right?
Yes.
Yes. I think you talked about it earlier in the conversation, sitting with yourself, sitting with that uncomfortableness for a while before you make a decision. That's seeking guidance from your higher self, from your internal wisdom. And a huge SQ failure is giving that responsibility for your life away to someone else to make those decisions. And losing that and then regaining it was super powerful for me. So, yeah.
I was going to say, and sometimes it can be not on purpose, but, unintentionally a procrastination tool. Like it feels like I'm doing stuff because I'm taking in all this information. But like, if you're not taking time to think about it, apply it, think about, and implement some things and also do that discernment piece, like which pieces am I going to take in and run with and which am I going to throw aside because they're not a fit. But yeah, at some point be done with the research part, right? The learning part and start to take action. Yeah. I think a lot of you, I was one of those people that was doing groups and webinars and all that kind of stuff. I started throwing out like free stuff, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to do something to help others. And I'm alone in then I was like, I'm not going to add to the noise. Let me step out of this for a little bit.
It sort of sparked the journal prompt cards I talked about in my journal, because they're just questions. And it's like, you have the answers from within. Think about these questions and write your own self-prescription or whatever, because it was quite a journey.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a long enough show, but yeah.
I know. I mean, I feel like we need to do a few follow-up interviews here. We have some tangents we could totally dive into.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are some personal tips and tricks that you use to stay motivated during those tough times?
Yeah. I think that staying connected with close friends is super important during tough times. We talked about loneliness and isolation earlier. Staying connected with someone
not on social media.
Exactly.
Doesn't count.
Yeah. I have a friend that I meet with once a week on Zoom for an hour, and I met her at Berkeley, and we've done it ever since we left, and we're just there for each other.
That's awesome.
And that's it. And pull yourself out of isolation, I think would be the biggest tip.
And you know what? Everyone write that down 100%. And, do what I say, not what I do. Because I am not intentional about that like I should be. And while I spend less time connecting on social media too. But it is so true. And, the social media is great. Like there's ways to connect, kind of stay on the forefront of what's going on in people's lives, but unknowingly, we have, the catch-up calls that we used to do with one another aren't really happening like they used to, because we feel like, I got the up-to-date thing, or you talk super quick and you're like, oh yeah, I saw that on Facebook. You don't have the actual conversation. Oh, I saw the pictures. I saw that, but it is not the same. So yeah, I think isolation is one of our big challenges of our time, really, honestly. And again, this is going to be a digression, so we're not going to go down this trail, but also younger people in their communication is mostly digital now. And they, kind of the way they communicate, I'm a little worried about that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So you have shared so much wisdom and value today, but I want to ask one more question for those who are either just starting or have the inspiration to start making their own impact, or maybe they're along their journey, but hitting some roadblocks. What words of wisdom do you have for others who want to make their own impact in the world?
Oh, I love this. Thank you. I know we talked about ripple effect quite a bit. So each day I tell them, when I feel down about my entrepreneur journey, because it feels like a roller coaster, I tell myself this affirmation. I say, each day I just do something small to make a difference, and that's enough. And that's enough. Mm-hmm. Each day I just do something to send a little bit of a ripple effect, and that's enough. And that's enough.
I love that. And that's so true. And again, the feeling of overwhelm does not serve us. Feeling dejected or frustrated, like we're not doing enough, does not serve us. And so, and scope creep happens everywhere. Whether you're working for others or for yourself, it's hard to keep those boundaries up and stay really focused and intentional about how we're using our time. And yeah, we can start to feel so dejected and frustrated that we're not making more of an impact. And comparisons of others make it more challenging. And feeling like our impact is so small. So that is a beautiful word of wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking me that.
Yeah. Well, Amy, it has been so amazing talking with you, a kindred spirit. And again, I feel like we could talk forever in a day, but please guys go check out Amy. She's Create Magic at Work. You can find her at createmagicatwork.net. And that link, along with any of her social media links, will be at the show notes for today's episode. You can find that by going to defeatthedrama.com, click on the podcast tab, and go to episode 229. And thanks again, Amy, for joining me today and for all the important work that you're doing in this world.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. I hope we brought some magic to everyone today for sure.
And get out there and make your own impact. The world is waiting, I promise. Take care.